What's up, everybody? I'm tired. Not in the best of moods, but I'm trying to get this done. Sometimes you just gotta suck it up, buttercup. Life ain't easy and get it done. So let me show you what I'm working with over here. Turn this fan off so you can hear me. So you saw there's the Nissan Quest. I've done a lot of work on this car before, having to remove the intake on it. Why am I removing the intake on it? Well, number one, it's got cylinder number 3 that is misfiring. Now you ask yourself, why is it misfiring? This is cylinder number 3 inside of here. And if you look down yonder, those are the valves. And you could see them, but not really. And I'm trying to see if those valves are bent. Okay, so we got good fuel injectors. We got all new coils in the back. 1, 2, and 3, which I've taken out and set up here. So those are all new coils, brand new. We replaced the valve covers. I did that on another video, which, by the way, even though I put RTV, it's leaking from that corner right there. This motor's a V motor. It slants down. I can't tighten that anymore or I'll break it. And I put RTV there. It was a bit generous, more generous than I usually am with it, because I figured that's where it was going to leak from, right next to the oil dipstick, and it's leaking from there. So now this valve cover has to come off again. Well, it has to get scraped off, cleaned up, RTV'd again, and put down again. And hopefully this time we get lucky and it doesn't leak. Anyways, I kept the original valve cover in the box that these came in up there. If I see any imperfection in that valve cover, because it is aftermarket stuff that we bought online, if I see any imperfection at all, I'm putting the old one back on it instead of this one. So that's a whole nother little situation there I got to deal with, but that's on the front. On the back side, I'm going to remove those coils since I'm pulling the valve cover and all that also. But on the back side, we are looking at, and if you remember videos before, I did a video where I painted the fuel rail, painted the lower intake, put new gaskets, painted all that. As you can see, painted the upper intake manifold, which isn't the funnest to take on and off. You got to remove the whole entire windshield wiper motor assembly. The computer tucks into it. Grounds for the computer and all that go into it. There's your computer. So it's quite a bit of taking apart just to have access to this back here. So this van, even after all new coils, even after all, those are all brand new fuel injectors too, by the way. Even after all that, we're still getting a cylinder 3 misfire. And I'm like, what the heck's going on, right? We replaced the solenoids. I mean, we replaced the cam sensors on the backside. We replaced the crank sensors. We replaced everything on this thing. We're still getting a misfire in cylinder 3. So I'm like, man, like I said in the beginning of the video, do we have a bent valve in the cylinder, or do we have coolant getting into the cylinder? And I don't know how well you can see. I don't think you're going to be able to get a good shot on this phone. It's hard to see. I used to have the little LCD camera that you would stick down in there, but it was being cruddy and it wasn't working, and I need to get a new one, a better one. Anyways, this is the fuel injector for number 3. And I have it disconnected right now, right? And as you can see, I had to get a new pigtail. The original one, the clip was broken and it wouldn't clip onto the injector and it was loose, and I was thinking maybe that's why it's misfiring. So to be absolutely sure that it wouldn't wiggle itself loose, I got a new pigtail with a new clip. I soldered this in, heat shrinked and everything. Made sure I got the right wires, looked it up, all that. So I got it zip tied here, kept it a little longer, because why not? It still plugs in. I didn't want to shorten up the wire on it. Anyways, there's your injector. It's a brand new injector. I'm gonna be leaving this unplugged, and I removed all this, and you're saying, why? I'm not replacing the coil, I'm not replacing the spark plug. I'm leaving the coil and the spark plug in both cylinder 1 and 5 over here, and cylinder 3 in the middle. I'm leaving like this. I'm leaving open and exposed. And then I'm putting the intake back on like that with no spark plug and no coil in number 3. I'm going to put the whole entire intake back on, not the windshield wiper motor and all that, but the intake manifold I'm putting back on. And then I'm starting it up. I got no coolant in it. I got the lower radiator hose disconnected. I've drained all the coolant out. And then I put water in it, and then I ran it, and then I mixed with whatever little bit of residue of coolant was hiding still trapped in the engine. And then I drained it again a second time to make sure that I get all the coolant out. No coolant whatsoever, and it's just water coming out. So I got straight water coming in it. The last thing I got to do to it is remove the thermostat. I have to remove the thermostat, but I right now my focus was on removing the intake. So the last thing I have to do is put the intake back, remove the thermostat, and then I'm going to start it up with no thermostat. I'm going to fill it up with water, and I'm going to run it with 5 cylinders, right? 2, 4, 6, 1, and 5, and number 3 is not going to be doing anything. It's not going to be getting fuel from the fuel injector, because that's going to be disconnected. It's not even going to have a spark plug in the hole or a coil. And you're like, Danny, why are you doing that? Because we are doing steel seal in it. We're going to put some steel seal to fix the possibility of there being a compromised situation going on in the head gasket on cylinder number 3, allowing coolant into the cylinder, fouling out that cylinder, causing a misfire. This is our last attempt at trying to resolve this before we succumb to pulling the head and sending it to a machine shop and having the valves and the head, everything redone. But anyways, the steel seal for a V6, for a 4-cylinder would be one of these bottles. For a 6-cylinder, technically it would be 1.5 of another bottle, and for a V8 it would be 2 bottles according to your instructions. This is roughly $120 online plus shipping, depending where you order from. Steel seal has the lifetime guarantee. Overheating, loss of coolant, white smoke from the exhaust, oil in the coolant, creamy liquid around the filler cap, permanent repair in minutes, fixed or refund, trusted by users since 1999. Steel seal's been around for a while, as you can see, 1999, and it's really all I use. I've used other stuff, and I've used pretty much everything: Blue Devil, bars, head gasket repair stuff. I've used them all, and they all gunk up. And when the customers have had it used, they'll bring me the car to fix the head gaskets. I'll pull the heads off, I'll take the radiators, take the water pumps out, and I see all the metal and sud in there that creates other problems. So steel seal, I don't understand the science. I can't give you a chemistry scientific class on it. Other people probably can. There is some good videos on YouTube, like specifically on steel seal, if you want to do more history on deeper research on the history of steel seal, who created it, how it works, exactly all that. Pretty much it's going to go in there and it's going to harden up and seal that imperfection in the head gasket without the expense of having to remove that head, taking it to the machine shop, yada yada yada. Why do I take the time and the effort to remove all this and remove cylinder number 3 put everything back together, pour the steel seal in, run it for like 30 minutes, shut it off, run it again for another 30 minutes. I'm going to go through that process probably 2 or 3 times, pouring as it's running, pouring the steel seal in with nothing but water and no thermostat, straight flow. Why do I do it with the coil and the spark plug out? The reason why I do it with the coil and the spark plug out, okay, the light's off, is simple. When there's no compression in that cylinder, so there's no fuel, there's no spark. I've removed the fuel from the fuel injector. I've unplugged it. There's no spark. There's no spark plug. There's no coil. Whatever compression that cylinder's making is just shooting it out. So it's just going to be running on 5 cylinders. It's going to be running rough. It's not going to be running smooth. But whatever compression, whatever it's making, I don't want the steel seal trying to get in and seal around the head gasket in that cylinder and having the fuel or the spark, the combustion of that cylinder, making it harder for the steel seal to seal specifically around that cylinder. Now, it's a 6-cylinder. It won't run on 4 cylinders, so I can't take 2 cylinders out. You can only do 1. If it was a 4-cylinder, you could run on 3 cylinders. You can remove 1. You know, a V8, you could run on 7 cylinders instead of 8. You get what I'm saying? This is a V6. I can run it on 5 cylinders. It'll run rough, but it'll run. So I'm going to run it rough, 5 cylinders. There's going to be no compression at all in that cylinder to disturb the steel seal from focusing on sealing in that cylinder. The other cylinders will have spark, fuel, everything happening in them. So the steel seal is not really going to be able to seal as well in those cylinders as it will in cylinder 3. So it focuses more on sealing in cylinder 3 because it's less activity going on in that cylinder. So the steel seal will ideally centralize and focus right there on that cylinder. So I'll run that like that, and then after I've ran it like that, guess what I got to do on these pain in the ass V6 minivans? I got to take the intake manifold off again. I've got to take that whole windshield wiper assembly off again. I've got to take it all off again to put the coil and the spark plug back in it, and then run it and plug the fuel injector in and run it, and hopefully that fixed the repair, right? So is there a little bit of labor involved in doing it this way, especially on a V6 minivan like this that's a booger to take all that apart? Yes, there is. I would not raise my hand and volunteer to do this, but you know, some people, you do what you have to do to help them out. And you know, this is my girl's van, so I'm doing it for her. Anybody else would get the middle finger and go somewhere else. At the end of the day, even for her, I'm not happy doing this. It's not something I want to raise my hand and volunteer, but she's worth it. She has sentimental value to the van. Her kids learn to drive in it, whatnot. She's got money in it. You know, she wants to hold on to it. So we're gonna do this. This is our last attempt to try to get that cylinder functioning properly again. I told her if we do the steel seal and this doesn't, and we still get that code PO303, which is misfire in cylinder 3, then you know without a doubt, you got bent valves in that cylinder. From looking in there, they don't look like extremely bent. Sometimes people like expect vent valves like to where you can notice that they're super duper bent, but sometimes it's just a minor dent, like hard for the human eye to even pick up, but there's enough of a bend in that valve to cause a misfire. How that valve could have bent, that exhaust manifold in the back of that head was leaking from the exhaust manifold. It had no catalytic converter, being that the catalytic converter was punched. It was hollowed out. So there was no back pressure and there was a huge exhaust leak really close to that cylinder. So for a while, that van was driven like that. I'm talking about for a long time, not for a week, for a period of time, that van was driven with that exhaust leak there. So then I go and put a new exhaust on it. I go and put a new catalytic converter on it. Now it's creating back pressure. It has a brand new catalytic converter. It's not punched out anymore. The exhaust, the whole Y pipe, both catalytic, well, there's more than 2 catalytic converters. It has 3 catalytic converters. All 3 of them are new now. There's no leak anywhere in the exhaust. It's completely sealed system. So now we got plenty of back pressure, right? But what happened is the consequences of running it before with no back pressure and a leak that close to the cylinder. So that cylinder number 3 in the middle of the head, that was in the middle of the exhaust manifold, directly the one being directly affected by that exhaust leak, and the fact that there was no back pressure. And that exhaust leak, what it does is it not only leaks exhaust out, but it also sucks air in when you're on and off vacuum. So that could have bent the valve in that cylinder is what I'm trying to get at, to not ramble too much. That over time could have caused damage to put a slight bend in that valve, just enough to create a misfire. Like you've seen, I replaced the wire on the fuel injector pigtail. I had to replace the pigtail. When I did that, I checked it with a test light. I made sure I was getting voltage pulsating on my signal wire, my ground wire. I made sure that everything was electrically speaking, that I was getting good electric voltage to that injector. So I know the injector's firing. The injector's brand new. I even went as far as swapping the new injector with the injector next to it after I had already put it in new, just to make sure that there wasn't like a dud, like a new injector that was a dud. No, because if it was, then it would have switched and said cylinder 305, cylinder 5 misfire. It would have switched over to the cylinder beside where I had switched the injector. So I know the injectors are good. It's not a fuel injector problem. And when I pull the spark plug, I can show you the spark plug here. I have it right here. So you can see how clean that spark plug is. It's because it's getting a lot of fuel on it. That's why it's staying so clean. A lot of fuel, no spark. Well, maybe spark, but it's maybe the coolant's cleaning it with the fuel too, if there's a little bit of coolant seeping through. And you wouldn't see that coolant dripping out. And if it was a major leak, you would see it like heavy white smoke coming out of the exhaust. If it's like, you want to say like a fracture in the head gasket, then you really don't see it right away. Only when you're really getting on it and driving it hard, you know, you might see a little something come out the tailpipe. But the only way you're really going to see it at idle is if that head gasket is really like done, you know, and you're burning a lot of that coolant out through there. Then you'll see that smoke coming out of the tail, that white smoke coming out of that tailpipe. I don't think the head gasket is extremely damaged, but there's a possibility that it could be slightly, hurt a little bit, just enough to create a misfire. So to eliminate that option of the head gasket, we're doing the steel seal. After we do the steel seal, there's nothing else we can do but hope and pray that fixes it and that cylinder number 3 seals up, no little bit of coolant seeping in or anything, that the valves aren't bent, and that cylinder fires normal and we get all 6 cylinders firing smooth again. If we do all this, steel seal does what it does because I trust it. I've used it on many, many, many cars for many years. It's the only one I'll even put in a customer's car. On an expensive head gasket like this, you're not just going to send that one back head in. You're going to send both heads in. You're going to do both heads. If you're going to do the heads, you're not just doing head gaskets and paying a machine shop. You're doing a timing belt. You're doing a water pump. This is so buried in here, and this isn't a belt. This is timing chains. You see that? And this is so tight in here, you ain't getting to those timing chains in here. I mean, you're pulling the whole motor out to do that pretty much. You can drop it out from the bottom and work on the timing chain through the bottom there, but you know, I'm not dicking around with this thing. If I'm doing it, I'm pulling the whole thing out and working on it nice and comfy out here. I'm doing the timing chain, I'm doing the water pump, I'm doing the heads, I'm doing everything. And then, you know, put it on the engine stand over here and work on it nice and comfortable. And then when I'm completely done with it, take it off the engine stand, drop it back in the car, and know that I got a good solid engine. I'm not going to be killing myself trying to do all that while it's still in here. You know, these minivans, they don't have much of a front end. They slope down pretty sharp and they're buried back in there pretty nicely, and they're not fun to work on. There's a big motor, this V6. I mean, it's crammed in this shaped, small, oddly shaped front engine bay pretty tightly. They put this engine in Nissan 350Zs and Nissan Maximas and Nissan Pathfinders. You know, this engine on a Pathfinder or something else, it's much easier, you know, to work on. This is a much easier work. I mean, these are Infinity G37, not G37, G35 motors in the sedans, all that. Much easier to work on. It's the same, it's a different intake manifold, but it's pretty much the same long block on these motors is what I'm saying. The Nissan Maximas, a lot of the V6 Ultimas, Nissan used the crap out of this 3.5 V6. I'm not a big fan of it. Unless it's the actual Skyline GTR V6. Then I'm a fan, but not these. Long story short, this is the last attempt before we say the engine has to come out. So if we put this in here and for some reason that cylinder still don't want to work right, even after we put steel seal in it, then what else can we do? She's just gonna have to drive it until it goes, or until I get a little more caught up and can pull the engine out for her. Right now I can't afford it. I mean, I really don't even have time to be doing this. I'm so backed up with work. I mean, the line of cars right now, what's on my plate right now is thick. It makes me want to go jump off a bridge. So overwhelming. So I really don't even have time to do this, but I'm sneaking this in here to do this, to get it done, trying to do it as fast as I can. It's not fun. Hopefully this is the end of the whole situation and it resolves it. If it doesn't, like I said, she's just gonna have to drive it until the motor can come out and properly be built, sent to a machine shop, and the whole 9 yards. In the meantime, she'll be able to drive it. I imagine it'll drive better, not worse. Maybe a teensy bit better. I recently put control arms on it and fixed a couple oil leaks and did some other stuff. Did the transmission fluid on it. So I mean, it'll run, it'll drive, it'll be usable. Put around town or nothing. I wouldn't go on no family adventure trip or nothing in it, because if that cylinder doesn't fix itself. But I definitely drive it around. She'd be able to use it around town. Not going too far, obviously, being gentle with it. So hopefully there's no need to be gentle. Steel seal does the job. Can you do steel seal on these vans? If you follow the instructions, it just tells you it'll steel seal tell you to leave the coils, the spark plug, all that in there. Just pour it into the radiator cap while it's running. You'll follow the instructions on their bottle. I take it a different step, and I pull, if I get a code that says like cylinder 1, cylinder 3, cylinder 5, cylinder 4, whichever cylinder it is, in this case it's cylinder 3, I'm running it with that cylinder completely empty. No coil, no spark plug, no fuel injector firing in that cylinder. And if this was a 4-cylinder, like a Toyota Matrix 4-cylinder with 4 little coils right up top, you know, Pontiac Sunfire, something easy, a Toyota Corolla, something easy, 4-cylinder, everything right up top and easy. Yeah, no big deal to pull the coil in the spark plug and run steel seal. On these vans, it's a bit more of a freaking chore. But if you want to get the best result out of steel seal, if you're going to pay $120 to do it, this is the way to do it. I think the video's been long enough. That's my rant. I'm going to put the intake back together. I don't have a phone that I can pause or GoPro or nothing like that. So we'll just call this part 1. I'll end it here. I'm going to put that intake back on. Like I said, no coil, no spark plug, no fuel injector connected, cylinder number 3. I'm going to just take the thermostat out. The next video I make will be with the car running, pouring the steel seal in it. I don't want nobody to be able to tell me, oh, he says he poured the steel seal, but I don't know. I wasn't there to see. Did he really do it? I don't want nobody to be able to come at me with that. So I'm going to make sure as I'm pouring the steel seal in that it's on camera, it's being recorded. I'll get my son out here to record me while I'm doing that. So yeah, we'll run the steel seal through it. It's gonna run rough. You'll see me doing it. And then after that, you know, I'm not gonna record the whole session of me pouring because you have to run it for like 30 minutes while you're pouring it, then drive it another 30 minutes. I'm gonna let it cool down, drive it another 30 minutes. I'm gonna go through that process. I'll still be doing that even after the steel seal has all been poured in, is what I'm saying. But I'll record at least me pouring the full 2 bottles in. So you can see me pouring it in while it's running. And know that both bottles went completely into it. And then I'll stop recording. And then I'll do another video. I'll spare you the video of having to take it off to put it back, put the coil back in. I'll do another video, a final video. So this is part 1. Part 2 will be pouring the steel seal in. And part 3 will be a video of after I put the coil back in and assembled it all for the last time and take it for a test drive to see the final results. So stay tuned for part 1. Just finished. Bye. Part 2 coming next, and part 3, the final video on the steel seal in a 2004 Nissan Quest with a 3.5. These videos will come quick back to back. I'm gonna do this one tonight. The next one, I'll probably do the next 2 videos tomorrow. So stay tuned tomorrow for the next 2 videos. Thanks for watching. God bless y'all. I'm calling it a night. Bye-bye.